What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a great wide receiver football IQ quiz to test your knowledge of the position. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and would like a daily field and gym workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. What you'll get access to is 500 plus wide receiver drills and gym exercises, all broken down with sets, reps, and examples of each drill and exercise. So again, very first link in that description below, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So how this video is going to work for those of you that aren't familiar with our quiz style format is I'm going to show a pre-snap look. I'm going to show a clip. I'm going to ask you a series of questions about the pre-snap look or about the clip, give you a chance to pause the video, think about what your answer might be, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so now this first example here, I'm going to pause this clip halfway through. So I want you guys to answer this question. Is this from the wide receiver? Is this good or bad hand technique off the line of scrimmage versus this DB? So is this something that you want to do in terms of hand technique? And is this a good or bad thing to do? What do you think? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. So pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So now I would say if you said that this was bad hand technique off the line versus press, you would be correct. If you think that this is a good thing to do, that would be incorrect, and I'm going to explain to you why. So I saw this clip on Twitter, and I saw a lot of people talking about, oh, these are great hands. This wide receiver has great hands off the line. He's controlling this DB at the wrist point. But here's the thing, fellas, when you swing over the top, when you were trying to do this like swim move and you expose your entire rib cage, all it takes is if this DB had a little bit more active feet, kept his feet moving, wasn't dead with his feet, and he gave you one good punch to that rib cage, you would be knocked completely off balance off your route, because you never want to expose your rib cage on a press release. You always want to keep your rib cage covered. So now you might ask me, well, what do I do with my release? What do I do with my hands? Guys, if you're going to swat his outside hand, you either want to slip underneath with this arm, like you rip underneath and almost like club, or you want to take this hand and you don't reach over the top, you shoot it over the top. You protect your rib cage. You don't swing it up here. You shoot it straight past the top of this DB's right arm, so you do not expose that rib cage. So fellas, that's my best advice I can give you with hand technique. You want to keep things simple, but if you're going to swim over the top, do not give away that rib cage. That is the easiest way to get knocked off balance. So if that's what you guys said, that would be 100% correct if you thought this was bad hand technique off the line. Okay, so now moving on to the next clip. So now this next clip here, I want to ask you guys, how would you run? So this is going to be a pre-snap look question. How would you guys run a 10 to 12 yard dig versus this specific coverage? So how would you guys run a 10 to 12 yard dig versus this specific coverage? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. So pause the video. All right, let's break things down. So now, first things first is when you come up to the line of scrimmage, you got to have something called a pre-snap process. This is something we go over with every single wide receiver that we train, every single wide receiver that comes out to one of our camps. And a pre-snap process is three specific things. Number one, you want to identify the DB's leverage. And the reason why I go over this is because this is how you pick what releases and what to do on your routes to create separation. If you don't have a pre-snap process, you don't know what to do, you're just guessing out there, and guessing can only work for so long. So first things first is that we have this DB and he's lined up inside shade. You see how his inside foot is shaded here. The middle of his body is even with my front foot. When he is shaded to the inside, that means that he has inside leverage. He is trying to stop a slant, a dig, and a post. Number two, the second thing you want to identify is the distance. How close or how far is this DB from me? He is freaking right up on the line of scrimmage, and he is not giving me any room to go. So inside leverage, right up on the line, no room. And is it man or is it zone? That's the last thing you want to identify. What's the coverage? So the last thing, that's easy. If his eyes are to the inside, looks like he's going to bail. He's outside leverage, eyes to the inside. That looks kind of like zone. They could disguise it if they wanted to, but when he's pressed up, squared up, eyes right on me, that obviously looks like press man. So it's man to man, inside shade, no room to go. So if you guys said that you would want to attack his leverage to the inside, take an outside release, and then slip under or work to stack, that would be correct. If you guys said you want to give him a fake to the outside and take the inside release, then break, that would be wrong. And I'm going to explain to you why. So let's play this full speed. So you see how this wide receiver gives his DB a move inside, gets him off the platform, pushes vertical, and then slips back underneath him. Because if you guys force the inside release, the spacing of this play will be off. Just because it's an inside breaking route does not mean that you have to take an inside release. Does not mean it. You should actually be more comfortable taking an outside release on inside breaking routes, in my opinion, because that's what you see more of. So, if you were to give this DB a move to the outside and you force the inside release, his sole responsibility is to protect the inside route. So he would keep his leverage, he would get hands on us, he would reroute us, even if he's a bad DB. This could happen even with a bad DB. And you could end up running that dig route, but catching it on the opposite hash. That's not a good route. In a real game scenario, the spacing of that play is off. So let's take what he gives him. Let's attack to the inside, and let's take this outside release. Now, you see how when this wide receiver takes the outside release, he's not able to stack this DB completely, because everybody's goal in man coverage is to stack a DB. What that means is have this DB be trailing right behind my hips. You give him a fake to the outside, and then you break on the dig. He's right there. He's actually a step ahead of me. So what you would do is you would slip under him. You would do something, and if he was a little bit tighter to us, you could take this inside hand, put it on the back of his hip, back of his shoulder, and throw him by. So you slip underneath, and now you got spacing on the play, but also kept timing with the quarterback. So fellas, if that's what you guys said, take what he gives you, take the outside release. That is 100% correct. And obviously, if you've been watching the videos and you've been keeping up with the videos, that should be an easy question for you. Okay, so let's play this thing again full speed. This is textbook from this wide receiver. Now, one other thing that I want to add, and the whole reason we go over that pre-snap process is we get a million questions about, Coach, well, how do I pick the right press release? That pre-snap process is how you pick the right press release. Because if he's inside shade and he's maybe like 2 to 3 yards off, you would run the route the exact same way. It would be the exact same way. It would just be a different release, right? Because if he's like 2 to 3 yards off and he's inside shade, you would do what? You'd close the distance with him. Then you would give him a move attacking his leverage, like a jab to the inside. So maybe you do like a little hesitation hop release, jab inside, then take the outside release. He's right up on the line. Do you think you want to do that hesitation hop? No, because you've already closed the space that we needed to be closed because the DB's lined up closer. So maybe you just give the quick jab inside and then go. You just take away the closing distance part of the release. And how you figure that is through the pre-snap process, the distance between the two of you, and obviously his leverage. So let's play this full speed one more time. This is textbook from this wide receiver, giving this lateral fake, pushing up vertical, and then slipping underneath on that dig route. Okay, so now, next example here. I'm going to ask you 2 scenarios on this route, okay? So now, first route is how would you guys run a 10-yard dig if this DB bails as soon as off the line of scrimmage, like he starts to inch back and starts to bail, and you have to run a 10-yard dig. Number 2, how would you guys run a dig route if as soon as the ball is snapped, this DB comes up? He doesn't bail, he comes up and he just sits right in your way. So how would you run a 10-yard dig versus the bail DB? And how would you run a 10-yard dig versus a DB who walks up and just sits right at 5 yards? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. So pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So now, if your break is at 10 yards and this DB's sitting off, maybe about 5 to 6 yards, as soon as the ball is snapped and you burst off the ball and he starts to bail, right? He starts to inch back, he starts to backpedal. You would not want to attack his leverage in this case because he is an off-man coverage. Like we talked about, you want to have a pre-snap process, and the distance dictates what we do off the line. So remember, if he's inside shade press, we'd want to attack him, take the outside release, work to stack and go, or maybe we slip under and throw by, right? But now since he's off and he's sitting right at that break point, I don't have to do a release. I just got to get up into the route. I want to attack his outside shoulder and his outside hip. Make him think that we are running a fade, so we could either get him to backpedal out of there like crazy so I could break under him, or maybe I get him to open up his hips and think that we're running a fade, and I slip under like a throw by. So that's what this ends up happening, and that's what this wide receiver does. So let's play this full speed. So he comes off the ball, he attacks his outside shoulder, gives a move, and you see how he's able to get separation on that dig. That's textbook right there. That's all you have to worry about doing. So many wide receivers will try to stem to the inside, but because, again, he's inside leverage, we identify that in my pre-snap process. He is shaded to the inside. That means that he does not want to give up the post or the dig. So if your goal is to attack him and just try to get him to backpedal then break in front of him, more often than not, a disciplined DB will not allow that. He will stem to the inside, and this DB will do something called weave. So he will angle his back pedal, so when you break on that dig, he'll be right on your front hip and can drive on the ball. Easy play for him. So we want to split him in half. Let's attack the outside hip. Let's attack the outside shoulder, and let's get him to flip. Now, what would we do if he walked up and he just sat at 5? Well, your break's at 10, so you obviously can't just attack his outside shoulder until 10. You would want to attack his leverage. So he walks up, you would want to attack his leverage, then try to stack for the remainder of the route. So if he's lined up in off coverage, and he's fairly close to the break point, he starts to bail, that's when you want to treat it like it's off man and you attack him. But he walks up and he's anywhere from 5 yards or less, and your break is at like 10 to 12, that's when you would want to treat it like press man. Let's close the distance, let's attack him, and take that outside release, okay? Very similar to the first example that we saw. So I'm going to play this again full speed one more time. I hope that makes sense, as I know we get a ton of questions about that, so I hope that clears everything up. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave that in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like a full 8-week wide receiver workout schedule, everything that wide receivers should do on the field and in the gym, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that. I'll see you guys next time.